got me thanking God for life.
Hey guys, guess who's back? AMG Dens, hashtag number 47, hashtag Michael Shoeblacker, hashtag fastest brother on the track. And I'm here with a new series called Wingz and Tingz. So what this series is about is essentially me giving some interesting hot takes in the latest developments in Formula 1. And what a better way to start it than looking at the 2022 grid of drivers and ranking where I think they'll be throughout the season. So, going to my first driver, I don't think he really needs the introduction because he's the GOAT. You tell me another driver that has 103 wins and 7 world titles and holds the record for the most poles in the sport too.
That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
He's an absolute sensation and an icon, and that is Mr. Sir Lewis Hamilton. So of course, the fans are still feeling shocked and so rightfully aggrieved by the horrific actions of the FIA, which robbed Lewis Hamilton of an 8th World Championship on the 12th of the 12th last year. But with that in mind, I think Lewis having some time away from the sport would help him, to relax, to clear his mind. We're going into a big year with all these new rules and regulation changes, so I'm hopeful that that downtime has helped him to take a break, a well-deserved one after that as well. And of course, when he does return, I hope that his faith in the FIA and the system is restored with their findings in their report after some very rogue decisions and actions that happened throughout last year's season. And overall, I'm not on this agenda of saying that Lewis has a point to prove when you're the most successful driver in the sport, and even their statistics support that. I don't think that there's a thing of saying that he has something to prove. But knowing Lewis's character, he's always been the underdog. People have always never given him the credit that he truly deserves, in my opinion. And I honestly feel that, he'll come back. He'll really be looking forward to these new cars and the way they drive. And he's just an out-and-out racer as well. So I'm quite optimistic about his return to the sport. And I hope that they can make it in a way as well where they don't ask him stupid questions or bombard him with stuff that will put him down. So on to the Dutch Lion next, Max Verstappen. Now, is he Super Max? Or did he get his driving license from Legoland? Right, it's gonna be an interesting one to see how the season pans out for Max, because bear in mind, when you're the champion, it's not only just a case of winning it, you also have to prove that you're championship material by defending it. And we've seen some of Max's defending. I guess quite sketchy. But no, of course, giving Max a fair chance, I think it's going to be interesting season to see how he goes about his driving. You have to bear in mind that this is the first year he's actually had to defend the title, so what will his mindset be? Can he afford to take a lot more risk after the scrutiny of the FIA and, the driving standards that are going to come into this season? He's also on 7 FIA penalty points as well, so he's not far off from getting a race ban either. Mentally as well, there's articles that have come out with him talking about how fatigued he's been, and Helmut Marko almost saying he can't handle Lewis. So is it a thing where we're going to see a more like Kimi Raikkonen-esque kind of follow-up season where that desire and hunger and aggression will go? Or is he going to be a true fighter and try and fight right to the end like Fernando Alonso in his 2005 to successive 2006 season? That'd be interesting to see. And the next driver we'll be looking at is Mr. Parage Boss, Mr. Valtteri Bottas, Mr. iOS version 3.0. And I can't lie, I like innovation. I like when people can look at themselves and try and re-innovate themselves to do even better. It's so inspirational. But what's not inspirational was Valtteri's performances last year. What was that? I couldn't believe that. He got lost in the sauce. I couldn't believe it. Whilst Lewis Hamilton was trying to fight for a world championship and fight for honours, taking on Michael Massey, taking on the FIA, taking on Max Verstappen, taking on Red Bull, taking on AlphaTauris, taking on Fernando Alonso, taking on the media, Valtteri was missing in action. I couldn't believe it. Rather than helping Lewis and being a good team player, Valtteri is out on TikTok doing up coffee bean farmers with the finest produce. Couldn't believe it, honestly. But you know what? Everybody deserves a second chance, and I think Valtteri will have a really good and positive impact at Alfa Romeo. They're a emerging outfit now. They've got the money coming in from Guan Yu Zhou. Kuala, which we'll talk about shortly. But who knows? Maybe a less pressured environment will be the greatest thing for Bottas' career. I think that he's still got a lot of raw speed, and you see that in qualifying. But whether or not he'll be able to develop a car and bring it up the pecking order, and he's learned anything from Mercedes that he can implement will be another thing we'll have to wait and see. And that brings us on to the Minister of Defense, Mr. Sergio Perez. And I can't lie, I think he had a reasonable season at Red Bull. He definitely played his role in assisting Max and like playing the Red Bull tactics they do against Lewis. And of course, as well, I think he had some highlights such as his race win in Azerbaijan, although very circumstantial, and of course his defensive work in Turkey too, where he held off Lewis to keep third place. So for Perez, I think it'll be quite interesting to see how he adapts this to these new cars. Will he focus more towards improving his qualifying, which we've seen as maybe one of his disadvantages or cons, and how will the new car behave with the tires? Will he be able to massage the tires like my gal? We'll have to find out. So next on my list is Mr. Carlito Sainz Jr. And I can't lie, this is all I have to really say on him.
One, two, three, four. Oh man, I love that. Shout out Carlos Sainz.
And now it's time for us to respectfully progress on to Charles Leclerc. Or should I say, Charles Leclerc? Because boy, the way Carlos Sainz came into that Ferrari team and said, hey, boss, I'm the captain now. It was a mad thing. Honestly, I'd never anticipated that Sainz just come into Ferrari and tell Leclerc to go and make me a drink. Honestly, I think Charles didn't have the greatest of seasons last year. I think they had a lot of moments which didn't come off, I'll say. I think definitely, there'll be a lot of room for improvement, and we know that, he's one of the hottest drivers on the grid when it comes to overtaking as well. So hopefully that will play into his DNA and his philosophy in his driving. But boy, he can't afford to let Sainz run away and, like outscore him like he did last season, or else all of those Italian mechanics are going to be turning to Sainz. And now we can segue into McLaren. And also, more specifically, we can go into Lando Norris first. So it should be an interesting season for Lando because last year he definitely showed his talent and that he could be fighting at the front with some of the best. So I have no doubts in his ability. But also at times we did see him crumble under pressure in Russia when he was under pressure, and maybe that lack of experience, didn't help him in those particular tight moments where you have to make very close calls with the strategy. So I'm very positive for Lando. I feel that he's got a lot going for him. He's still young, he's still developing, he's still eager and keen to progress. And ultimately, I hope McLaren can move forward with the development of the car and fight even more competitively for podiums this year, because that should definitely be on the agenda list for them. And from one enigma to the next, we now have Daniel Ricciardo. And in the great words of Vandy Sabanda, how did the honey badger turn into the hamster? But no, serious talk. I mean, the performance from Ricciardo last year was underwhelming. And of course, like, there's always a new car tax when you're adjusting to a new team and a new car. But the expectations for Daniel coming into McLaren were quite high, and he failed to deliver on that, unfortunately. But it's not all doom and gloom. I would say that there are still highlights of the old honey badger rambling along there, with his infamous performance at Monza, getting that win for McLaren, which is like the first win for McLaren since 2012, I want to say. Please don't roast me. But yeah, it meant a lot for McLaren to obviously get that. And again, I think Daniel was another driver that he booms off of a lot of confidence. I think that's the main thing with him that will help him to push forward with the car. And there are no excuses for next year. I think if he doesn't perform, he could potentially be replaced by the next driver I'm going to talk about. Gasly, Gasly. I'm joking, but no, Pierre Gasly. I think potentially he might be able to get a top seat in 2023 if he puts the performance in this year and beats the likes of Ricciardo. Because to be honest, whilst there wasn't any crazy standout moments for Pierre Gasly in 2021, I think he had a solid season. I think the previous year he'd already got 75 points, and in 2021 he got 110 points. So even with a car that you could argue was less competitive than the previous year, he still managed to get more points, which shows that he's continuing to grow and develop. And I think just being in a team that cherish him a bit more and don't put him under the pressure is conducive to his performances. So I personally would like to see Pierre Gasly perform, and put a massive finger to the Red Bull family as well for the way they treated him in his short stint at Red Bull too. So logically, it makes sense to then look at his teammate, the world's shortest Formula One driver ever, Yuki Sonoda. And what an interesting rookie year it was for Sonoda, because on one side you could see this fiery, quite aggressive, like Red Bull typical like Red Bull Academy driver. You can just see that that is his MO, it's his modus operandi to drive in that style. And I think in certain contexts it works, but also there's the flip side with Yuki where he had this, and we'll never forget about this. So, yeah, it's a tough one with Yuki. I think definitely he's got enough talent to be in Formula One, and he's definitely one of the fan favorites for being so outspoken. But I was going to say Toro, so AlphaTauri even have to work on this, refining his talent and just making sure that he's not involved in so much drastic incidents next season. Because he's also another driver with a lot of penalty points, and it wouldn't really do AlphaTauri any justice if he was to get a race ban, which is very likely. So moving on to the next team and next driver, personally, I feel the most underrated driver on the grid, Mr. Ocon. And I don't know if you could see the board there. That is a replica model of his 2021 car at the Hungarian Grand Prix. We held off Sebastian Vettel for almost the entire race, which was insane, and I think one of my favorite races too, besides Bottas playing bowling with Max and Leclerc and Perez, but we won't get into that. With Ocon, honestly, I think another great season for him. He sustains his position in the sport. It's one of those ones where the previous year he was fighting and finally got a podium. Last year he was fighting and finally got a win. So it's only onwards and upwards for him. However, people will be quick to mention that Fernando Alonso still outscored him for the entire season, despite the fact that Alonso taken so much time out of the sport. So for Ocon, I still think he needs to push and really kick on, because to be honest, other than his days at like Manor when he first joined the sport, I don't really recall him ever really like convincingly smashing a teammate. But on the flip side, I think that he's got a great relationship with Alpine, obviously a French manufacturer and a French driver, lots of chemistry and synergy there, of course. And he just seems like a really cool character. I actually think he's one of my other favorite drivers on the grid as well. So rooting for Esteban Ocon in 2022. And now for Mr. L Plan, Mr. L Retirement Plan. Because honestly, I thought Fernando Alonso was done out here. I thought he was washed up like the ocean. I thought that guy was finished. But lo and behold, Alonso does Alonso stuff, and I think you could see that although he's one of the older drivers on the grid now and he's one of the elder statesmen of the sport, he's still got that passion and drive, and he feels in his own abilities that he should have won more championships. Rightly or wrongly, there's going to be lots of debate on that. But for Fernando Alonso, I think this will be a really interesting testing point for him, because bear in mind, he really returned to the sport because of these new generation of cars. So he's getting what he wants. Let's see how that's going to pan out. But of course, I think, he still has the talent there. He showcased that on many occasions, fending off Lewis Hamilton in the Hungarian Grand Prix we just mentioned. And on top of that, managing to scrape a podium in Qatar as well, which seemed very unlikely and really and truly should have been Perez's, podium, but for Red Bull's strategy blunder that day with the tires. So, yeah, interesting season for Fernando Alonso, and he's never Like Fernando Alonso's like 50 cents. You could shoot that guy like 50 times. You could just say to the guy, just go away, and he always manages to come out somewhere. So yeah, it would be interesting to see how he does for sure. Pull up in an Aston Martin, dog. I love that song. If you haven't checked it out, it's Heady One and some Italian artist. Honestly, check that one out. But the next one in the logical order would be Mr. Vettel at Aston Martin, dog. Shout out to Paris from On the Chicane as well. It's a great channel. Please check them out. But yeah, Sebastian Vettel in 2021 at Aston Martin. So as for him, I actually think he had a decent season, in terms of just him having a new opportunity, going to grass is greener, trying to revive his career, like his hairline, lol. I think he did a reasonable job. I think there was that one race in Azerbaijan where they made that kind of alternative strategy, the Perez strategy, as I like to call it, work, where they stayed out and waited for a safety car, and then they were able to capitalize on that when the red flag came out. So overall, decent for Sebastian Vettel. Whether or not he still has it in him to really challenge, the older guys like Fernando Alonso and Lewis, and also to handle the younger guys like Max and Leclerc and Lando and Russell, which we still haven't touched on yet. It'll be interesting to see. But I can't go too hard on Vettel at all. What I would say with Aston Martin though, boy, they better come with the sauce this time. Because listen, they tried to copy Mercedes' recipe and they didn't have the sauce. But this year there's no hiding because obviously they can't copy Mercedes' car. They have to come with their own original idea and try and implement that to the best way the regulations have been set out. So be very interesting to see how Seb leads Aston Martin in the development of the new car. My guy Stroll on pole, that guy. Interesting character. I really don't know what to say, or I don't really have many expectations of Stroll. I don't think he's the worst pay driver on the grid, and after Abu Dhabi, he's definitely not my least favorite Canadian, put that way. But no, I think Stroll is just one of those drivers where I think he's still learning, obviously, and he has a great mentor in Seb to kind of show him the ropes and learn a few things off of. But I don't expect anything big from Stroll in 2022. But I probably jinxed it now. No, 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 no. Get this guy out of here. Get him out. Get him out. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. I don't want to see this guy. Man like George Russell, jeez, got that promotion to the big boys, big dogs at Mercedes. Really happy to see George joining Lewis and partnering him for the next season. It's going to be so epic to see how the two of them get along. Obviously, I hope that the media don't force this agenda down our throats of, oh, Lewis has something to prove. He's got to beat George. I don't think it's like that. I think George should use the opportunity to learn as much as he can because there's not many opportunities you get or times you'll get to learn from a 7-time world champion. So, yeah, very excited for George. Also, geez, that guy's fashion sense is like really improved now. I'm not seeing those dodgy loafers and white jeans. So, yeah, big shout out to George Russell. I hope that he can do the business and not only put in stellar qualifying performances but back that on track as well with some great racing. And listen, I'll do the next 3 just in one go because I did not intend this video to be over 20 minutes. But yeah, so we have Guan Yu Zhou, we have Nikita Mazepin, and we have Mick Schumacher. So obviously for Mick and Mazepin, expecting them to at least, try and be more consistent. I beg them, try not crash the car because it seems Haas don't even have enough money to change livery this year. So yeah, just expecting them to, just take it a bit more easy and hopefully by some miracle or divine intervention, they can actually get some points for Haas. That would be really a good step in the right direction. And for Guan Yu Zhou, I think he's going to be under a lot of pressure because, you've got other great drivers in the wing like Oscar Piastri, which dominated the F2 season, and he wasn't given a seat. So obviously, whilst I'm quite happy Guan Yu Zhou's got the opportunity, first Chinese driver, I think, to be on the grid, he's going to be expected to, try and learn as quickly as he can and to try and match Bottas as well. So yeah, not really much to say on the bottom 3. And I guess the saying is true when they say nice guys always finish last, because the last one I have is Mr. Alexandra, but not McQueen, Albon. And again, I don't know how I feel about this, because whilst I feel he was given more time than Gasly, At the same time, I don't think he really kicked on better than Gasly. And in my opinion, personally, I would have loved to have seen somebody like Nick De Vries in that Williams Mercedes seat. But powers that would be would put Albon there instead. So again, he's got a second chance. Let's see if he makes the most of it. For Williams, it's an interesting one because this is the first year now I think they fully own the team, and obviously it's just like a legacy of Frank Williams, God bless his soul. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that one works out. But again, not too many high expectations for a team that prehistorically can't even bring their car to testing. It's not a great sign. So guys, that has been the first episode of Wings and Tings. I'm recording currently at 5:11 a.m. in the UK right now. So yeah, I just couldn't sleep. I just had this idea in my head. I was like, I've got to try and execute it before it starts to get a bit fuzzy. So I hope that you enjoyed the content, the laughs, the points. I hope that you guys can take something away with it. Please leave your comments down below as well and tell me who your eyes are for next season coming up. Who do you think is going to be contending at the front? Who do you think is going to have like the howler this season? Which livery are you looking forward to the most? So many different questions. And will you guys be watching Drive to Survive as well? Let me know. But guys, until next time, peace, love, prosperity, and if you could drop the video a like as well, so I know that I should make more content like this in the future. That'd be highly appreciated. But until next time, take it easy, guys. Wings and Tings.
Can't do love 'cause they get too attached. Phone get broke, and whip get scratched. I'ma just take my knot.